I used to think the loneliest part of my job was walking off set after they called cut. When the lights shut off, the crew scatters, and it's just me, heading home to a place that doesn't feel like home anymore. But that was before the betrayal went public. My name's Evan Marlowe. If you recognize it, it's probably from the Deadeye trilogy or maybe Stone River. I've done my time in the tabloids, red carpets, rumors, rehab that one time when my father died and I spiraled a little. But nothing, absolutely nothing prepared me for this. It started, as these things always seem to, with a subtle shift. A missed call, a sideways glance, a dinner left untouched on the table, gone cold. You ignore the little signs because you're used to rehearsing forgiveness in real time. We actors are good at that, pretending everything's okay, even when your whole world's unraveling behind your eyes. Claire was always the steady one. My wife. My anchor. She met me before I was Evan Marlowe, when I was just Evan Pearson from Dayton, Ohio, waiting tables and doing indie shorts with 3 people in the audience. We married the summer Deadeye, Requiem wrapped. She walked down that aisle like a secret I didn't deserve to know. I thought we had the kind of love that could survive anything. Fame tests everything, especially love. It crept in slowly. Claire started getting distant about a year ago. Not the kind of distant where you stop sharing the grocery list. Deeper than that. Her smile started to miss her eyes. She stopped asking about my roles. She stopped laughing at my jokes. One night she said, "I don't feel like I'm in this marriage anymore." And I froze, because I didn't know what that meant. I still don't. The press found out before I did. A grainy video. Claire. Another man. Laughing in the back of a black SUV. TMZ ran it like it was the Oscars. Hollywood heartthrob Evan Marlowe's wife spotted with tech mogul Julian Reeve. I saw it on my trailer monitor between takes on Ashfall. Someone on set gasped. I kept reading my lines like it was nothing. I couldn't breathe. A few days later, she left a letter. Not even a conversation. A letter. She wrote, "I'm sorry for doing this now, this way, but I need to be honest. I haven't loved you for a long time." I sat there with that note in my hand while the world turned my private collapse into public theater. Paparazzi outside my gate. Tabloids speculating if it was my fault. If I cheated first. If Claire was pregnant. She wasn't. But she was gone. That should have been the worst of it. Then the subpoena arrived. It turns out Julian Reeve wasn't just her lover. He was also her business partner in a company that's now under federal investigation for securities fraud. And Claire? She signed her name to more documents than I can count. Some of them in my name. I didn't even know. Now I'm being called in. As a witness? As a participant? My lawyer doesn't know yet. All I know is I'm due in court in 2 weeks. And the press has stopped calling it a breakup. Now they're calling it a scandal. Marlowe's marriage implodes amidst fraud allegations. There are rumors I might lose everything. Contracts, endorsements, even custody if this gets worse. Funny thing is, none of it matters to me right now. Not the money, not the movies, not even my reputation. I just want to know when the woman I love became a stranger I can't even recognize. I still don't know if I'm the victim or just another fool in a very expensive suit. All I know is, the spotlight's never felt colder. It's strange, the things you notice when your life is coming apart. The silence in a house that used to echo with laughter. The way your own name sounds on TV, said by people who've never met you. How even the faces of friends begin to shift, warping ever so slightly, like they're waiting to see if they still should be on your side. The news broke wide open 2 days after the subpoena. One of the entertainment sites, can't remember if it was Variety or Page 6, got their hands on internal emails from Reeve Tech, Claire and Julian's startup. There it was, plain as day. A signature. My signature. On a statement pledging $2.3 million in startup capital. Thing is, I never signed it. My manager called me in a panic. "We need to get ahead of this," he said, like it was a movie scene we could rewrite. My publicist was already working on a statement. Evan had no knowledge of the business dealings between Claire Pierce Marlowe and Julian Reeve. He remains focused on his upcoming projects and asks for privacy during this difficult time. It was the kind of message you put out when you want people to stop asking questions. It didn't work. The questions kept coming. Did I know about the fraud? Was I laundering money? Was Claire my front? Was I covering for her? I couldn't step outside without cameras trailing me like shadows. I tried going to the gym one morning in a hoodie and sunglasses. One of the photographers yelled, "Hey Evan, did you help your wife rip off investors, or were you just too dumb to notice?" I turned back and almost hit him. Almost. Instead, I walked home. Through the back alleys. Like a criminal. Claire, meanwhile, had gone radio silent. We hadn't spoken since she left. I didn't even know where she was until I saw the pictures. Her and Julian walking along a beach in the Maldives like they didn't just set my world on fire. She was barefoot, wearing the same sundress I bought her in Capri on our 3rd anniversary. The comments under the article were brutal. He deserved it. Should have seen it coming. Bet he was cheating too. Hollywood dirtbag. It's wild how fast people turn on you when they think you're no longer useful to worship. One minute you're the golden boy, the action hero with the soft eyes. The next, you're a punchline in a meme about karma. My lawyer, Marcus, sat me down the day after the email leak and said, "We're going to fight this. But you need to understand something. If your name's on anything illegal, even if you didn't sign it, this is going to be ugly." Ugly. He meant federal ugly. Prison ugly. But I wasn't worried about that yet. What ate at me wasn't the legal mess. It was that I didn't even see it coming. I lived with this woman, shared my bed with her, told her things I've never said to another soul, and she forged my name and vanished into the arms of another man. What kind of person does that? And what kind of person am I for not seeing it? I keep replaying the last few months in my mind, looking for the cracks, the clues. She'd been distracted. More texting, less eye contact. Canceled dinners. But she'd always been busy, and I was always off on set. It's easy to miss the bleeding when you're always wearing makeup. It's not just the betrayal. It's the humiliation. The whole world knows now. They're watching, waiting, wondering how I'll react. And me? I'm just tired. I sit in my empty house, surrounded by scripts I can't focus on, emails I don't open, and photos from a marriage that was apparently built on sand. There's a wedding picture on the mantle. I don't even recognize that woman anymore. I don't even know if I ever did. And the worst part? There's a voice in the back of my head whispering, maybe she never loved you. Maybe she just needed the name, the spotlight, the access. And now she doesn't need you at all. That voice, it's getting louder every day. 3 weeks after the story broke, I started noticing the shift. It wasn't just in the tabloids or the headlines anymore. It was in people's eyes. You walk into a room and suddenly it's not, "Hey, Evan," anymore. It's a polite nod, an awkward pause. Like they're not sure if they're supposed to treat you like a friend or a cautionary tale. Some stopped calling altogether. People I'd worked with for years. My agent, Lisa, tried to sugarcoat it. "They're just waiting for the dust to settle," she said over speakerphone while I sat in my living room staring at the curtain Claire picked out. Studios don't like risk. You know that. Am I a risk? I asked. There was a beat of silence. Right now, yeah? But we can change that. And just like that, I realized that this thing, this betrayal, this scandal, it wasn't just going to cost me my peace. It might cost me everything. I spent the next few days in a kind of haze. Not quite angry, not quite depressed, just numb. Floating. Like I was waiting to wake up from someone else's nightmare. The studio pulled out of the Ashfall sequel. Quietly. Claimed scheduling conflicts and creative redirection. But I knew the truth. I'd become radioactive. A PR liability. They didn't want my face on billboards if my name was showing up in court filings. And the court filings just kept coming. Turns out Julian and Claire weren't just sloppy, they were bold. They'd used my name to secure investment capital. They leveraged my brand to boost credibility. Hollywood star Evan Marlowe joins Reeve Tech Advisory Board. That was an actual press release. I'd never even seen it. How many people thought I was in on it? How many believed I'd sold my name for a few million and walked away while investors bled out? Marcus was working nonstop to build a defense. "We're going to prove you had no involvement," he kept saying, like a mantra. "We'll get affidavits, trace email IPs, track forged documents. This is beatable." But the court of public opinion doesn't wait for due process. They've already decided. And I was starting to feel like I had no one in my corner. Then came the party. I didn't want to go. I hadn't been to an event since everything went down, but Lisa practically begged me. "You need to show your face. Let people see you're still standing. Still working. Still you." So I went. Put on a tux, combed my hair, even smiled a little. Bad idea. The moment I walked in, I felt it. The eyes. The subtle shift in conversation when I passed. The fake hugs from people I used to consider close. The worst part? Claire was there. With Julian. They arrived an hour after me, laughing like the world hadn't caught fire. Her hand was on his arm, her smile too wide, her dress a little too perfect. I felt my stomach twist. I turned to leave, but Lisa stopped me. You walk out now, they win. Breathe. We'll make the rounds, and then we go. I nodded, but I couldn't breathe. Not really. I ended up in the back garden, staring into a glass of whiskey I wasn't drinking. And that's where he found me. Julian. Evan, he said, like we were old friends bumping into each other at a wedding. You look good. I didn't answer. He smiled, cool and polished, like the press hadn't roasted him for weeks. I just wanted to say, no hard feelings. I turned toward him slowly. Are you serious? You and Claire, it ran its course, man. These things happen. I saw red. You forged my signature. You dragged me into a fraud investigation. You stole my wife. She left you, he said. That smile still stuck to his face like glue. You just weren't paying attention. For a split second, I thought about punching him. Right there, in front of God and Malibu and every minor celebrity holding a champagne flute. Instead, I said something I didn't plan. I hope she does to you what she did to me. His smile slipped. I walked past him and didn't look back. I don't remember much after that. Just the sound of my own heartbeat in my ears. I got in my car, drove home, sat in the driveway for almost an hour. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't drink. I just sat there wondering how two people could twist something beautiful into something so vile. And for the first time since this all began, I didn't just feel betrayed. I felt angry. Really, truly angry. Not at Claire. Not even at Julian. At myself. Because somewhere deep down, I think I saw it coming. And I did nothing. There's a strange kind of grief that comes with being betrayed publicly. It's not like the private kind, where you can scream into pillows and cry in your car and lean on people who'll love you through it. No, this one is lonelier. Because everyone thinks they already know what you're going through. And they judge you for not playing the part they expect. I wasn't allowed to be angry without looking guilty. I couldn't cry without being weak. And silence? Silence made people write their own versions of the truth. So I tried to stay visible. Took a few interviews. Gave the same rehearsed answer about having no involvement with Reeve Tech. Told Jimmy Fallon a half-smile joke about how maybe I should have read the fine print before marrying someone smarter than me. The audience laughed. It stung. Behind the scenes, I was unraveling. I barely slept. I stopped eating. I'd find myself standing in the middle of a room with no idea how I got there. Some mornings I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror. Not because I hated who I saw, but because I didn't recognize him. And then the phone rang. It was Claire's sister, Elise. We hadn't spoken since the wedding. She was never really a fan of mine, thought I was too performative, whatever that meant, but she wasn't the type to call without a reason. Elise, I answered. My voice cracked. I hadn't spoken to anyone that day yet. Evan, she said, her tone flat. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I thought you should know. Claire's in trouble. I leaned against the kitchen counter. What kind of trouble? She's spiraling. Drinking a lot. Spinning like crazy. Julian's got her wrapped around his finger, and I think he's setting her up to take the fall. I didn't say anything. Just stared at the wall. I know what she did to you, Elise added quickly. I'm not defending it. But whatever you think of her, she's still my sister. And you were family once. I almost laughed at that. Were. I'm just saying, she continued, if there's anything left in you that cares, maybe talk to her before this goes nuclear. Talk to her? I hadn't even been able to look at her in photos without feeling like someone cracked my ribs open. But the worst part? A small, broken part of me did still care. So I called her. The line rang 5 times. Then she picked up. Evan. Her voice was soft. Hesitant. It's me, I said, even though she already knew. There was a long pause. Just breathing. Hers and mine. I didn't think you'd ever call, she said. Neither did I. Another pause. I'm sorry, she whispered. I closed my eyes. Not because the apology mattered. It didn't. Not anymore. But because I'd spent so many nights imagining her saying it, and now that she had, it felt hollow. Like a line in a bad script. I need to ask you something, I said. About the documents. About the forged signature. She sniffled. Julian said it wouldn't matter. That it was just a formality. That we'd pay it back. I didn't know it would go this far. Did you know he was going to frame me? My voice was shaking now. No. God, Evan. I never wanted that. I was in so deep. And everything felt so far gone already. Claire, you signed my name. I know. You ruined me. I know. More silence. I loved you, I said. I didn't plan to say it. It just came out like a breath I'd been holding for years. I know, she said again. And I loved you too. I almost believed her. She started to cry. I hung up. Because there's nothing left to say when the truth arrives too late. That night, I lay in bed and remembered all the things I didn't say. The warnings I ignored. The excuses I made. The times I let things slide because I was too tired, too distracted, too hopeful. Love doesn't always end with a bang. Sometimes it just erodes. And by the time you realize what's missing, the foundation's already gone. I used to play lawyers on screen. Knew how to pace the room. Knew how to deliver the big lines. The jaw-dropping final monologue that won the jury over. The slow tear sliding down the client's cheek as justice was served. Real court is nothing like that. It's slower, colder, less about truth and more about angles. Strategy. Who gets their version of the story in first? I walked into the federal courthouse in downtown LA wearing a suit that felt too tight, flanked by my attorney Marcus and two PR consultants who looked like they were going to a funeral. Maybe they were. I was listed as a material witness. For now. But everyone knew that could change. The government had built a case around Julian Reeve and Claire's startup, Reeve Tech. Misuse of funds. Securities fraud. Wire fraud. Allegations that they'd raised nearly $18 million in capital using forged endorsements and false statements about partnerships, including one with me. I was this celebrity hook. The name investors trusted. There it was, right in the summary indictment. Statements of partnership with Evan Marlowe, including forged documents and email threads purporting his involvement. I sat behind the glass partition, listening to a federal prosecutor lay out my name like it was just another puzzle piece in a spreadsheet of crimes. I watched Julian sit there, stone-faced in a gray suit, his hair perfectly styled. Claire was across the room, eyes down, fingers twisted in her lap like she was trying to disappear. Part of me wished she would. They called me to the stand that afternoon. I'd been coached on what to say. Stick to facts. Don't speculate. Be calm. Be concise. But none of that prepared me for how it would feel, hearing my name tossed around like a prop. Like I was just some tool Julian had used to steal money from people who trusted him. The prosecutor asked if I'd ever endorsed Reeve Tech. No, I said. I never gave verbal or written consent for my name to be used. They showed the signed document with my name on it. That's not my signature. Then came the emails, one from me, praising the company's vision. I didn't write that. That's not my style. That's not even my email address. The defense tried to twist it. Mr. Marlowe, would it be possible that you authorized your wife to act on your behalf during that time? No. Even informally? No. And you didn't know what she was doing with the company you invested in? I didn't invest. Claire handled her own finances. And you never once asked where the money came from to fund your lifestyle? The house in Malibu? The art pieces? I earned that money. Through my work. Through my name. The same name she used without asking. That one landed. I could tell by the way Julian clenched his jaw. Afterward, I stepped off the stand and sat back down, hands trembling slightly under the table. Not with fear. With fury. It was one thing to have your heart broken. Another to be turned into a prop in someone else's scam. The courtroom emptied, and Claire caught my eye for the first time in months. She mouthed the words, "I'm sorry." I turned my head away. The headlines the next morning were ruthless. Marlowe breaks silence in court. That's not my signature. Hollywood star thrown into fraud case as ex-wife faces criminal charges. Evan Marlowe. Victim, fool, or both? Lisa told me to stay off social media. Marcus told me to lay low until the preliminary hearing was over. But the silence was getting to me. And so was the shame. Because somewhere underneath all the hurt, I still couldn't shake this awful thought. I should have seen it. I should have known. I was married to her. Slept beside her. Shared my life with her. And I never saw the signs. Either I was too busy pretending to be someone else on screen, or I was just too in love to see the truth. And now, my name was in court filings. My legacy was tangled in headlines I couldn't control. And my friends? Most of them weren't picking up their phones anymore. The thing about being famous is, when things are good, everyone wants to stand beside you. But when the curtain drops, you learn real quick who actually knows your name. There's a moment after the bleeding stops where you don't know what to do next. You're not healed, not whole, but the shock is gone. The pain is quieter, and you start to see things clearly, maybe for the first time. That's where I was, somewhere between broken and rebuilding. The court hearing had passed, and the judge ordered a full investigation into Reeve Tech's investor trail. Claire's bail was set at $500,000. Julian? He had enough offshore accounts and private legal muscle to make Houdini look underfunded. I hadn't seen Claire since that day in court. Didn't want to. But her lawyer contacted Marcus and asked if I'd consider a private mediation to resolve some civil entanglements. Apparently, she wanted to make it right. Wanted to settle matters without more public fallout. Translation: she wanted to protect what little reputation she had left. I said no. She didn't get to burn the house down and then choose where the ashes fell. Instead, I went back to work. Not on a film set. Not on press junkets. On me. I went for a run the next morning, no trainers, no assistants, just me and the cold California morning air. I ran until my chest burned. I think I needed the pain. Needed to remind myself that I still had control over something. After that came the therapist. His name was Alan. Mid-50s, wore vests and had a stare like he'd already read every secret you were about to reveal. I read about you, he said during our first session. But I'd rather hear it from you. So I told him. Everything. The marriage. The distance. The affair. The documents. The shame. And for the first time in months, someone didn't interrupt. Didn't flinch. Didn't try to spin it. When I finished, he just said, "Sounds like your entire sense of self was wrapped around being needed." I didn't know what to say. He continued, "You weren't just in love with her. You were in love with the idea that you mattered to her. And when that crumbled, you didn't just lose a wife. You lost your role." That hit me harder than any tabloid headline. Because it was true. I'd spent so long being her husband, their actor, the Evan Marlowe, that I didn't really know who I was anymore. So I started finding out. I turned down 2 film offers. One was a sleek revenge thriller they wanted to frame as a comeback. The other was a streaming drama clearly written to mirror my real life. They even titled it Exposed. No thanks. Instead, I went back to theater. A Broadway. Small venue. No press. No trailers. Just a stage, a script, and 35 people in folding chairs. God, it felt good. I'd forgotten what it was like to act without cameras. To breathe life into words that weren't designed to sell tickets. I played a man who lost everything in a fire. Rebuild his life from the ground up. Not exactly subtle, but fitting. Some nights, after the final bow, I'd stay behind and sit on the empty stage. Just breathing. Listening to the silence. It was the only place I didn't feel like a headline. Meanwhile, the investigation kept unfolding. More documents. More lies. More investors stepping forward. I was cleared officially, no charges, no liability. My name was pulled from the indictment. Marcus called to tell me. "You're free," he said. But I didn't feel free. I felt empty. Because even if the world now believed I didn't know, even if I was legally innocent, I still wasn't okay. The damage was deeper than paperwork. It lived in my trust, my friendships, my faith and love. You don't walk away from something like that and just go back to normal. There is no normal. There's only next. I was starting to figure out what mine looked like. It was late. One of those heavy LA nights when the air feels like it's holding its breath. I'd just finished cleaning the dishes from a quiet dinner, chicken and rice, nothing fancy, but the kind of thing you make when you're finally trying to take care of yourself again. The knock came just as I was drying the last plate. 3 short wraps. Familiar. Too familiar. I knew before I opened the door. Claire. She stood there in jeans and a hoodie, her hair tied back in a way I hadn't seen since we were broke and happy and pretending an apartment with a leaky sink was romantic. Her eyes were tired. Her face thinner. She looked human. Not the version I'd seen in headlines or courtrooms. I didn't speak. Just stared. She swallowed hard. I know I shouldn't be here. But I didn't know where else to go. I leaned on the doorframe. "What do you want?" "I'm not here to ask for anything," she said quickly. "Not money. Not forgiveness. I needed to say something. And I need you to hear it. Just once." I should have shut the door. Should have told her she had her chance. But I stepped aside. She walked in like she remembered the place by heart. Her eyes flicked across the living room. The couch. The coffee table we picked out on a rainy Sunday. The framed photo I hadn't taken down yet, us on our honeymoon in Santorini. She didn't sit. Just turned to face me. "I know I don't get to be the victim," she said. "I did terrible things. I lied. I betrayed you. I let Julian convince me we were building something revolutionary, and when things started falling apart, I got scared. And then I did the worst thing of all. I used you. Your name. Your trust. I didn't move. I keep asking myself how I became that person, she said, her voice cracking. And the truth is, I don't know. I think I stopped being myself a long time ago. I stopped trying to be good. And you were this constant light I couldn't live up to anymore. I laughed, but it wasn't a kind laugh. Claire, I wasn't a light. I was just blind. She nodded. Took the hit. I deserved that. There was a long silence. She looked down at her hands like they didn't belong to her anymore. I lost everything, she said. But the worst part is knowing I lost you before all this even started. I felt something shift in my chest. Not sympathy. Not quite. Just sadness. Because she was right. We'd lost each other long before the headlines. The fraud. The other man. It happened in the space between text messages. In canceled dinner plans. In quiet resentments that never made it into words. She looked up. I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I just needed you to know that it wasn't all fake. We were real. I loved you. I know, I said softly. And maybe that's the hardest part. She looked like she wanted to cry. I didn't offer her comfort. I'm leaving LA, she said. Taking a plea deal. I'll be gone a long time. I just didn't want to go without saying goodbye. I nodded. She moved toward the door, then paused. You deserved someone better than I could be. Then she walked out. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel broken. Just done. The day after Claire left, I slept for 10 hours straight. No dreams. No nightmares. Just a deep, dark nothing. When I woke up, I made coffee, opened the windows, and stood barefoot on the hardwood floors, listening to birds instead of news anchors. It was the first morning I didn't check headlines. Didn't Google myself. Didn't brace for a new disaster. I didn't feel triumphant. I wasn't standing on some metaphorical mountain, arms wide to the sky. But I felt calm. Like something inside me had finally gone still. I kept doing the theater gig. 6 nights a week. The venue wasn't glamorous. Some nights we had more cast than audience. But it grounded me in a way nothing else could. Every time I stepped on that stage, I remembered why I started this career. Before the fame. Before the money. Before the headlines. One night after the show, a woman from the audience stopped me in the tiny lobby. I'm sorry, she said, a little shy. You probably get this all the time. But that performance, it was honest. Like, painfully honest. I smiled. Thank you. That means a lot. She reached out and shook my hand. I'm Lila. My sister dragged me here tonight. I didn't even know you were in it. But I'm glad I came. I was used to people knowing me for blockbuster roles. Red carpet interviews. Tabloid drama. But this was different. She'd seen me, not the mess. We started talking. First after shows. Then once over coffee. Then more regularly. It wasn't dating. Not really. Just two people navigating their own ruins, meeting somewhere in the middle. Lila had been through her own storm. Divorce. Betrayal. Not on a headline level, but devastating in its own way. She didn't want anything from me. She wasn't impressed by my past or intimidated by my pain. She just listened and didn't look away. One night we sat on a park bench with takeout containers in our laps. The moon was out, sharp and silver. I Googled you, she said quietly. I laughed. Took you long enough. You looked tired in a lot of the pictures. I looked at her. I was tired. Are you still? I paused. No, I said. I think I'm something else now. We didn't kiss. We didn't hold hands. Just sat there. Two people who understood that healing isn't a straight line. And that maybe, just maybe, it's okay to let someone see you halfway there. Meanwhile, the Reeve Tech trial moved forward without me. Claire took the plea deal. 5 years federal, no parole. Julian, last I heard, was still fighting tooth and nail. Denying everything. Suing whoever he could. My name was no longer on the docket. No longer a question mark in some prosecutor's folder. But it was still out there. In search bars. In Reddit threads. In the minds of people who only know me through screens. And that's okay. Because the people who matter? They're not Googling me. They're talking to me. Seeing me. The me who's rebuilding, not for show, but for real. There's this quote I heard once. You don't just get over things. You carry them. But you learn how to carry them without letting them break your back. I think that's where I am now. Learning to carry it. Learning to live again. It came in the mail. A plain white envelope, no return address. My name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in over a decade. My father's. Except, my father died 7 years ago. I stared at it for a full 5 minutes before opening it. Inside was a folded piece of lined paper and a photocopy of a will. The note was short. 5 sentences. Written in pen, shaky at times, but still his. Evan, if you're reading this, I'm not around anymore. You know I wasn't great with words when it counted, but I always hoped you'd figure out how strong you are, even when everything feels like it's falling apart. Don't let anyone, famous, family, lover, friend, take that from you. You know who you are, even when the rest of the world doesn't. Love you, son. Dad. I didn't cry. I didn't know what I felt, honestly. I just sat down at the kitchen table, holding that paper like it might fall apart if I blinked. It wasn't a new letter. From the look of the postmark, it had been forwarded. From an old address I hadn't used since my 20s. Probably stuck in someone's drawer, then remailed when they realized where I'd gone. But the timing? It felt intentional. Because lately, I'd started asking myself those very same questions. Who am I when I'm not being watched? When I'm not performing? When I'm not someone's husband, or someone's name to leverage, or someone's scandal? I've been searching for that answer in stages. On stage, in therapy, in conversations with Lila that were more about sitting in silence than sharing big revelations. And now, here was this letter, this echo from a man who hadn't always gotten it right, but who somehow managed to say exactly what I needed to hear when it counted. It's strange. When everything first blew up, I thought what I needed most was to be understood. But now, I think what I needed was to be undeniably myself, even if that meant being misunderstood for a while. Later that night, I took the letter and walked to the beach. My favorite place when I was still just a nobody with a dream. I stood there, waves lapping at my feet, thinking about my father, Claire, Julian, the tabloids, the lies, the courtroom, the people who walked away when things got uncomfortable. And then I thought about the people who stayed. Alan, my therapist, who saw through me. Lisa, my agent, who never gave up on me. The theater director who didn't care about my headlines. Lila, who never flinched. Me, for that matter. I stayed. When I could have disappeared. When I wanted to. That counted for something. I sat in the sand for a while and let myself feel the quiet. Not silence like the lonely kind that followed Claire's betrayal. This was different. This was peace. And just as I stood to leave, my phone buzzed. A message from Marcus. Julian pled guilty. Sentencing next month. It's over, man. Really over. I looked out at the ocean. It didn't feel like a victory. Not exactly. But it felt like closure. Not the kind that wraps everything up in a bow. Not the movie-ending kind. Just the kind that lets you stop looking over your shoulder. You spend enough time in the spotlight, and you forget what natural light feels like. No filter. No script. No stylist fixing your hair between takes. Just you. And the world. And the question that's been waiting at the edge of every broken thing. What now? It had been nearly a year since Claire left. 9 months since the trial. 6 since the final story ran its course and the press moved on to a younger scandal. And me? I was still here. The play ended its limited run to decent reviews. Not glowing. Not scathing. Just honest. I like that. It felt like a fitting reflection of where I was, quietly figuring it out, far from perfect, but present. Lila and I never rushed anything. We kept it simple. Walks, coffee, talks that didn't feel like interviews. Sometimes we'd go a few days without seeing each other. And it didn't feel like a threat. It felt like space. The kind that doesn't mean distance, just breath. I told her I wasn't ready for love. She said she wasn't asking me to be. We're not a headline. We're not a promise. We're a maybe, and somehow, that's enough right now. I sold the Malibu house. Too many memories there. Too much noise between those walls. I found a smaller place inland, quiet and sun-drenched, with a crooked fence and lemon trees in the back. I planted new ones. Watched them bloom. Started cooking again. Badly, at first. Burned rice. Overcooked pasta. But I'm getting better. I even started writing. Not for anyone else. Not for studios or agents or awards. Just me. A screenplay. About a man who loses everything and finds out that's exactly what he needed to begin again. Yeah, I know. Real subtle. One afternoon, I ran into a fan at the grocery store. Older guy, maybe mid-50s. Baseball cap, kind eyes. Hey, he said gently. You're Evan Marlowe, right? I nodded, already bracing. But he just smiled. I saw you in that little theater off Wilshire a few months ago. You were good. Really good. Just wanted to say that. And then he walked away. No selfie. No gossip. Just kindness. It stayed with me all day. There's something freeing about not being the center of attention anymore. About being able to be just a man. No headlines. No damage control. No handlers whispering in your ear about optics. You get to look in the mirror and say, this is who I am. All of it. The broken parts. The healing ones. The things I lost. The things I found. And somehow that's enough. The world doesn't need you to be perfect. It just needs you to be real. So that's what I'm doing. One day at a time. One honest breath after another. The story of Evan Marlowe and Claire Pierce Marlowe is over. But mine? It's just beginning.